Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today, we're diving into a story that reveals the cracks behind one of the most strategic and contested regions in modern history, Crimea. On the surface, Russia's control over Crimea might look absolute. But beneath that display of dominance lies a deep and growing vulnerability that could reshape the entire conflict in the region. When Russia annexed Crimea in 2014, it seemed like a masterstroke of strategy. The world watched as Moscow swiftly took control of the peninsula, securing its naval base in Sevastopol and expanding its influence over the Black Sea. But more than a decade later, the very factors that made Crimea valuable have become sources of weakness for Russia's grip. The reality is that Crimea's stability rests on fragile ground, both literally and politically. One of the biggest challenges Russia faces in Crimea is geography. The peninsula is connected to mainland Ukraine through a narrow strip of land called the Isthmus of Perekop. That small connection makes it extremely vulnerable to supply disruptions. Before 2022, Crimea relied heavily on Ukraine for water, electricity, and trade routes. When those links were cut, Russia had to scramble to build new infrastructure like the massive Kerch Bridge linking Crimea to Russia. But even that bridge has proven to be a weak point, as Ukrainian attacks have repeatedly targeted it, disrupting logistics and damaging Russia's image of control. The Kerch Bridge, which President Putin himself personally inaugurated, was meant to symbolize permanence. Instead, it has become a reminder that no structure is invincible. Ukrainian drone and missile strikes have hit it multiple times, cutting off military supplies and creating panic among Russian forces and civilians on the peninsula. Every time it's attacked, it exposes how dependent Crimea is on that single connection and how easily that link can be severed. Beyond the bridge, there's the issue of water. After the annexation, Ukraine blocked the North Crimean Canal, which supplied around 85% of Crimea's fresh water. The blockade devastated agriculture, forced water rationing, and created deep frustration among residents. Although Russia reopened the canal after its 2022 invasion, the infrastructure remains outdated and fragile. Any renewed fighting near the canal could once again choke off Crimea's water supply, turning the peninsula into an unsustainable military outpost. Then there's the military reality. Russia has turned Crimea into one of the most fortified regions in Europe, stacking it with missile systems, aircraft, and naval assets. But these defenses have become prime targets for Ukraine's precision strikes. Over the past year, Ukraine has managed to hit major Russian military sites, including air bases, fuel depots, and even the headquarters of the Black Sea Fleet in Sevastopol. These attacks have forced Russia to move ships away from the area, effectively reducing the strength of its naval operations in the Black Sea. For years, the Black Sea Fleet was seen as a symbol of Russian dominance, but today it's a fleet in retreat. Ukraine's innovative use of naval drones and long-range missiles has changed the balance of power. Ships that once patrolled confidently now hide behind coastal defenses or flee towards safer ports like Novorossiysk. This shift has not only weakened Russia's military presence, but also damaged its prestige, something the Kremlin values deeply. Economically, Crimea has also turned into a burden. International sanctions have crippled trade and investment in the region. Tourism, once a vital part of Crimea's economy, has collapsed. The once bustling resorts of Yalta and Simferopol now see far fewer visitors, replaced instead by military convoys and checkpoints. The cost of maintaining and defending the peninsula has skyrocketed, draining resources that Russia desperately needs elsewhere. Even the local population reflects the strain. Many Crimeans initially supported the annexation, hoping for prosperity and stability. But years of isolation, inflation, and restrictions have changed the mood. Reports suggest that morale among both civilians and Russian troops is low. Ukrainian partisans have also increased their activity, carrying out sabotage and intelligence operations right under Moscow's nose. It's a quiet but growing resistance that highlights how control doesn't always mean loyalty. Politically, Crimea has become a symbol that Putin cannot afford to lose, yet cannot fully secure. Losing Crimea would deal a devastating blow to his image of strength and his narrative of restoring Russian greatness. That's why the Kremlin invests so much in propaganda about Crimea's eternal place in Russia. But the more it tries to project confidence, the clearer it becomes that Russia fears vulnerability. Every attack, every explosion, every Ukrainian strike chips away at that illusion. In recent months, Western intelligence and satellite imagery have revealed large-scale Russian fortifications stretching across northern Crimea. Trenches, minefields, and anti-tank barriers now cover the landscape, signaling that Moscow expects a possible counteroffensive. But history has shown that static defenses can't hold forever, especially when morale and supply lines are weak. The cost of defending Crimea is becoming unsustainable, and the fear of encirclement is growing inside Russian command circles. For Ukraine, retaking Crimea remains both a military and symbolic goal. The Ukrainian government has stated repeatedly that no peace can be lasting without Crimea's liberation. While a full-scale assault would be incredibly difficult, Kyiv's strategy of isolation and precision strikes is slowly working. By cutting off supplies, targeting command centers, and undermining logistics, Ukraine is turning Crimea into a strategic liability for Moscow. Energy is another silent factor. Crimea depends heavily on imported fuel and electricity. Its energy grid is weak and vulnerable to disruption. Any sustained damage to fuel depots or power stations could leave large areas of the peninsula in the dark, especially during winter. For Russian troops stationed there, that could mean shortages of everything from ammunition to heating, a nightmare scenario that would force Moscow to divert even more resources just to keep the lights on. The psychological impact of this pressure is also significant. Russian civilians in Crimea now live with the constant threat of air raids and explosions. Fear and uncertainty have become part of daily life. Each new strike reminds them that the war isn't confined to distant battlefields, it's at their doorstep. For many, the once proud narrative of Crimea's return to Russia now feels like a dangerous illusion. Ultimately, the hidden vulnerability behind Russia's grip on Crimea isn't just about geography, logistics, or military strength. It's about legitimacy. Crimea remains internationally recognized as part of Ukraine. No matter how much Russia fortifies it, the world refuses to accept the annexation. This isolation limits economic recovery, cuts off foreign investment, and keeps the region under constant political and military strain. In the long run, these vulnerabilities could determine the outcome of the entire conflict. Russia may hold Crimea for now, but its control is fragile, costly, and constantly under threat. The cracks in that control are widening, and Ukraine's persistence ensures they won't close anytime soon. Crimea has become both a prize and a trap, a symbol of Russia's ambition and its Achilles heel. So while Russia continues to project strength, the truth is far more complicated. The foundations of its grip on Crimea are eroding from within, and the question isn't whether those weaknesses matter, it's when they'll finally break. Thanks for watching, and if you found this breakdown insightful, make sure to like, share, and subscribe for more deep analyses on global conflicts and strategy.